TikTok.
Hello, ladies and
Hi
gentlemen,
there.
and hello, Judge Cowan. How are you?
Very well, thank you on this beautiful Friday evening.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining Talk Time with Terri. Our behind the scenes person is not with us tonight. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat. I'm going to do my best to make sure the judge does answer them and or get your messages if we do not have time. So please still put them in the chat and I'm going to do my best. But so please welcome Judge Cowan. How are you? And am I pronouncing your last name correct?
It's Cowan.
Cowan. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to make sure that we get that right. So how are you this evening?
Very well, thank you. It's wonderful that it's Friday. I'm so happy to kick off the weekend with a conversation with you. Thank you for the invitation to join you. I'm really thrilled to be here and talking with your audience.
Good, good, good. Well, let's get started. So first, please share with us what actually inspired you to run for a position of the Court of Common Pleas.
Yep, absolutely. So I ran in 2021, as you know, Terry. You
Mhm,
were kind enough to extend an invitation for me to speak with you then.
mhm,
And I really enjoyed our conversation then. And my goals and my reasons for running remain very much the same. I've decided to run for judge then and now to continue to serve our court involved children and families. My career has been focused on improving court practices for our children and families who find themselves involved in the court system. I
mhm,
came to the law through social work. I have my master's degree in social work. And when I was a practicing social worker, going to court with my families that I was serving as a social worker, I really saw that the court system and the training of the judges and attorneys wasn't really providing that
mhm,
full encompassing perspective of what was bringing families into the courthouse in the first place, and
mhm,
judges and attorneys lacking some training and knowledge of family systems, community issues, child development, psychology. And so I decided to go to law school to really improve those interventions and continue to be passionately dedicated to bringing an interdisciplinary approach to the bench.
I really like that. I appreciate that because you know, knowing that you saw something that didn't sit well with you, and you chose to do something about it. You chose not to just complain about it. You chose to go to law school. You know, you chose to go to school, and so and do and make the change that you want to see. And so I greatly appreciate that. And before I ask my next question, I want to make sure that our audience get educated and understand that yes, you do sit on the bench, but you do have to run. You are running in this election.
Yes.
You want to explain that to us?
Yes, absolutely. I can bring everybody up to date. So, when Judge Kim Berkeley Clark retired at the end of 2023, of course, Judge Clark had served a long and very illustrious career in the family division, one of our absolutely most beloved judges on the bench and dedicated to the family division. So she retired at the end of 2023, which left a vacancy in the courthouse and left really just an opening. For instance, you can imagine that when we have a judge who retires in between the election years, we can get a backlog in cases when those vacancies
Mm,
remain open. And so I put myself forward with our state senators and with the governor's office as being interested and being nominated to fill that vacancy. And so the governor did nominate me to fill that vacancy, Governor Shapiro, and with
mhm,
the support of our state senators, Senator Lindsey Williams and Senator Jay Costa.
mhm,
I went through the vetting process, the screening process, the background checks with the governor's office, and was appointed to fill that vacancy this past February. So I was confirmed by the full Senate on February 4th and then sworn in by President Judge Susan Evashevic de Lucente. And then assigned to the family division, which is where I want to keep serving. I will continue to serve until that end of that vacancy, which is the end of 2025. But if I'm not elected for a full 10-year term, my time on the court will end at the end of 2025. So
Okay.
I'm running to be elected for a full 10-year term.
Okay, and thank you for that. Thank you for educating us on that, because I wanted to make sure that people understood in the breakdown of exactly what happened. So thank you so much for that, and mentioning Judge Clark. Everybody loves Judge Clark. So let me ask you, how would you handle, or how do you handle heavy caseloads and ensure uh, um, that all cases are given the attention that they deserve? And my question comes from, if a large caseload, and that means maybe someone's a court date is postponed 3, 4, 5 times, which that's work, that may be school, that may be babysitter. How would you handle if elected to serve your full term? How would you handle a caseload like that?
Yes. So we do have large caseloads in the family division. And when I was practicing as an attorney, I was certainly accustomed to juggling large caseloads because my attorney jobs have always been public interest focused jobs. So
Hmm.
I've been in, legal settings with heavy caseloads. And really it's all about preparation to make sure that not we can't get all the information about a case beforehand, of course, because we're listening to witnesses in real time and evaluating evidence in real time. But if there's a docket to review, some history, some hearings that have happened before other judges, it's really important to do that prep work in advance of those hearings so that you're coming in with that background knowledge, and then you're able to really give the time and attention to the people who are there in front of you, and you're not losing precious minutes to looking up things that could have been looked up when the people are not standing there in front of you, taking time away from their own jobs,
Yeah.
children taking time away from school. So
Hmm.
really doing that prep work and having judicial staff who are dedicated to doing that prep work and providing the highest level of service to everyone coming through the courthouse.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. And so I'm going to piggyback off of you wanting to stay in family court,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes.
And so, can you explain? Can you or share with us in family law cases, how do you ensure, or how? Yeah, give us an example of how you ensure the best interest of the children and prioritize and still uphold, the rights of the parent.
Yes.
So that has to be a juggling. How share with that the challenge. Share with us the challenge of that.
Yes. So in the family division, we're looking at protection from abuse cases, custody cases, divorce, support, and then, of course, our dependency and delinquency systems involved cases. So our CYF, Children, Youth, and Families involved cases, and our delinquency involved cases. So all of those are, controlled by different bodies of law.
Hmm.
But mostly, of course, the Juvenile Act and our Domestic Relations Code here in Pennsylvania. And we do have the guiding star of best interests of the child. And when we're looking at best interests of the child, we're really trying to get information from all of the important people in the child's life. So their parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, maybe teachers, therapists, coaches, and really just trying to make sure, and of course, the child themselves. It's very important that kids are given the opportunity to speak with the judge and, tell the judge anything that they want to be able to tell the judge, because their day to day is so important for them to have some say over what's going on in their lives.
Hmm.
So when we're looking at that, we're really trying to make sure that we're getting a full picture of all the important people in a child's life, and really doing our best, or my best on the bench, to make sure that I'm pulling in all of those important people who are going to love and support the child and focus on, and oftentimes I ask the adults to really set aside their differences and
Mhm.
come together and contribute to the child's life in any way that they can, in any meaningful way that they can. So whether that's, looking at partial custody or
Mhm.
some, overnight visits or some, special outings or whatever it is, to
Mhm.
make sure that we're wrapping a child in all the supportive, loving adults that we can.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And I think you answered my question because it was basically talking about, domestic violence
Yeah.
as well. And, so you basically tapped into that. Let me ask you this, Judge Cowan. What role do you believe the judges should play in the community beyond the courtroom?
Yes, absolutely. So when we're elected to the bench, we're no longer able to take part in political events.
Hmm.
So this is a little bit unusual when judges are running to be elected because we're obviously very highly involved in political events. But there are lots of community events that take place that are not political events that
Hmm.
judges can still show up for. So we can show up for educational programming. For instance, I'll be going to Pittsburgh Classical Middle School in 2 weeks to do
Hmm.
a Women's History Month event for the students there, in my role as judge. And that's a community event to talk to the students about what being a judge looks like and how the court system works and our different branches of government. So we can be involved in the community with all kinds of activities in the community, educational events, building out resources in the community for pro bono services, services for pro se litigants, which means people who are coming in without an attorney and trying to present their case on their own without an attorney.
Hmm.
Pro bono services, meaning those attorneys, like all of us judges, encouraging attorneys in the community and in the county to provide some low cost legal services or free legal services for areas of high need in the county. So we can be very involved in all of those kind of community efforts to
Hmm.
improve and educate just our community at large about legal issues impacting them.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. Because I know we had a magistrate Giuseppe used to do.
Yes,
Yeah, he used
I
to
know
do.
Giuseppe.
Yeah, he used to do Wednesdays for free over in Wilkinsburg Library.
Yes.
So yeah, that's. Thank you for reminding me of that. Thank you so.
Yes. So after this, please invite me to things because I still want to get out and spend time with people. Don't forget about the me in particular when after all
Absolutely.
this is over.
I'm going to hold you up to that. I'm going to hold you up to that.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Okay, so my next question. Um, what initiatives or changes, um, Judge Cowan, would you advocate for to improve the justice system in Pennsylvania, particularly in the Court of Common Pleas?
Yes, absolutely. So there are a few kind of initiatives that I'm passionate about. One initiative is just in continuing to make sure that we're focusing on providing alternative dispute resolution services available for families. So
Hmm.
we do have some mediation in our custody cases available in the family division. I think we have an opportunity to expand mediation in our child welfare dependency cases. I
Hmm.
was able to, I grew up in Monroeville, but I started my legal career in Washington, D.C. And we had access to mediation in all of our child welfare dependency cases. And that was really helpful because we were able to get families connected with services much more quickly than, as you were saying earlier, Terri, sometimes when hearings get continued and kind of that decision making gets pushed down the line
Hmm.
because judges' dockets get very full. But when you have access to mediation, you can resolve a whole lot of issues without having that, without having to have that judge there and get some problem solved faster. So mediation, alternative dispute resolution, and then filling out our services for our pro se litigants, those individuals who are um, in the position of not being able to afford legal services, making sure that we're providing those educational self-help opportunities, making sure that we're making it easy for them to get the, tips and specific directions on where to go, what to do, where to take this paperwork, etc., and making that more user friendly. And then, of course, encouraging our attorneys in the county to step up and fill in the gaps for our individuals who need, who need legal representation but can't afford high prices. And then another part is I've been part of an effort to ensure that the court system is responsive to individuals with mental health diagnoses, intellectual disabilities issues, and specifically with the increasing number of individuals we have coming through the courts with autism as one of their identities that are needing all of us judges to interact in ways that really effectively communicate with people, no matter what their communication comfort level is. So we've worked on making sure that all of our courtrooms have different manipulatives, different activities available for people when they need to have a minute to, take a break and have a minute to just sort of de-stress. And we have a sensory room in the courthouse now that's available for people of all ages, whether you're an attorney or whether you're someone, who's a litigant coming through the courthouse. And so we just want to make sure that we're electing judges who are dedicated to doing all of these projects and taking the time in the day to stay dedicated to all of these projects, because they are optional. So it's, one of those things where, if you don't have judges to say, yes, I want to dedicate this extra time in my day beyond what I'm doing with my docket to focus on these court improvement projects, we won't have them. And I've always been somebody to step up and provide leadership and say, yeah, we need to get on with this, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to continuously improve, to continuously learn, to make sure that we're, doing as much as we can to be effective and helpful for everybody coming through our courthouse doors.
I have to say, first and foremost, because the Talk Time with Terri is educational. And when I say that you have literally taught me something today, this is the first time that I've heard of the court improvement projects. I have a sensory room. I did not know this. This is some very, very good information that we all should know. Yeah. But I did not know that. So thank you so much for sharing that. My first time hearing it here at Talk Time with Terri. And so I thank you so much for that, because I just did not know that.
Yes. And that's in our family division courthouse. We can encourage our criminal court to learn from some of the things we're doing over in the family division as well.
You're reading my mind now. Thank you so much for that, because I did not have that knowledge. I did not have that knowledge there. But my next question to you is, can you, if you can, because I know there's some things that even running on a campaign, it's just some things you cannot discuss. And so we respect and understand that. But can you, if you can you share an example of a situation in which you had to make a difficult ethical decision, and how did you handle that?
Sure. So I can just use the campaign example, for instance. It's interesting being a candidate for something, because you get a lot of people approaching you for unusual things, which probably isn't surprising, quid pro quo. And if you do this, I'll support you. And if you do this, I'll vote for you in this, that, or the other thing. And so I have absolutely drawn a hard, firm line in the sand that even if it's something that's, could be me not getting voted or not getting this or that endorsement or whatever it is, if it is something that would be beyond the ethics of my profession, my personal ethics, my obligation to myself, then I don't do it. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. I was trying to see if we had questions. Did you see any questions pop up? Because I want to make sure that we get any questions that our audience may have. Thank you so much for that.
I have not seen any pop up, but that
That's
doesn't
good.
mean there aren't any out there.
Well, good, good. A couple more questions. Couple more questions. Um, Let me ask you this, Judge Cowan. What do you believe sets you apart from the other candidates?
So I am the first MSWJD on the bench. And that's a really significant difference. I really do approach all of my cases from an interdisciplinary perspective. I take all of the experience as both a social worker and a child welfare attorney. I still teach at the University of Pittsburgh School of Social Work.
Mm,
I teach master degree students. I teach child and family advocacy, children and families at risk, and lobbying and advocacy for nonprofit organizations. And I do that to not only continue my mission of really making sure that I'm able to kind of break down the court system for people who aren't naturally attorneys and
mm, mm.
haven't gone through law school, to make it accessible and, just provide that continuing education, but also to continue to educate myself. I think learning needs to be a lifelong endeavor, and
Yes.
being in that environment where I'm learning from the students, I'm learning about what they're doing and their internships, their field placements, their other courses. I'm keeping up to date with what all the other professors are doing. So in that dedication to making sure that I'm continuously learning in that way, I think really does set me apart from my peers, and really is an asset on the bench when we're looking at problem solving family issues, and a lot of family issues that are caused by greater community societal issues. So my perspective and my experiences are unique. I am highly recommended by the Allegheny County Bar Association as well. I'm proud of that, because that's, again, me being vetted by my peers.
Mhm.
And, having gone just through that process. But really, yeah, I think the thing that most significantly sets me apart is my dual degree, and bringing that wider perspective to the bench. You'll hear a lot of candidates talk about how they have social workers that they rely on, and that they want to, increase the number of social workers and witnesses who are social workers. But I'm the only judge who's trained in both disciplines.
Okay. So you got to teach us something else now tonight, because you taught us about the court improvement projects, the Century Room. Now you said you are dual in MSWJB.
Yes.
Okay, educate us.
Yes. So I have my master's in social work. So before I became an attorney, I was a social worker, and I studied for my master's in social work. So I was a practicing social worker. And then after being a practicing social worker, I applied to law school, and I graduated law school with my Juris Doctorate, which is the degree that you need to sit for the bar exams. And again, I started my legal career in DC, so I'm barred in DC, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. And yeah, so yeah, I hold both of those degrees.
So one of my thank you so much for that. Thank you so much, because as you were talking, I couldn't decipher the letters. So
Yes,
now I get it. Now I get it.
yeah.
Um, One of my last questions, couple more questions. How do you view the relationship between the courts and public trust?
Mm.
What will you do to strengthen that relationship, if you feel that it needs to be strengthened at all?
Yeah. Well, I do think it needs to be strengthened. I think all of our institutions right now need to be strengthened. We keep, seeing, just more and more concerns with not only our judiciary, but our legislative branch, our executive branch. And so, as a member of the judiciary, I think it's critically important and that I do help to build up that trust in the institution so that when individuals are coming through the courthouse and they're appearing in my courtroom, they know that they're going to get a fair, unbiased opportunity to present their whole story and that they're going to get a judge who's going to listen to their whole story. And even if they're not, happy with the outcome,
Mhm.
hopefully people will see it as they had a chance to present everything and they will at least see it as a fair outcome, even if they're not happy with the
Yeah,
outcome.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that's just critically important. I mean, we're very fortunate in Allegheny County to have a robust judiciary, to have a place with, judges who are dedicated again to making sure that we're constantly improving ourselves. But we need to keep that tradition strong here.
Mhm.
And we need to make sure that we're carefully electing judges who will make the community proud of what we have here in Allegheny County in terms of our government services. And in this particular situation, it's the judiciary.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Um, Now, Judge Cowan, one of my last question. If elected, if you can answer this question, if elected, what would be your top two priorities as judge of the Court of Common Pleas?
Yes. So if I'm elected, I will the again the pro bono services
Mm.
and really making sure that we're um, providing more education and or legal representation to people who need it so
Mhm.
that they can successfully navigate themselves through the complex court system.
Mhm.
That's really important to me because that's all about accessibility. And that's all about what you referred to previously, Terry, in terms of building up trust within
Mhm.
the institution of the judiciary. We want people walking in and feeling like there are people there to help with clear directions of how to solve their problem. I don't want people coming to the courthouse frustrated, confused.
Mm.
They need the help. They've walked in because they're in crisis and they're walking out the door just as confused, befuddled,
Mhm.
and feeling like there was no one there to help with no helpful information. So, and I know that's an issue. I know it continues to be an issue. And there are a number of us judges who are really passionate about improving that. But again, we need to elect judges who are willing to put in the time, work, energy, and effort to improvement.
Yeah.
So that issue, and then the alternative dispute resolution. That
Awesome.
is the second one.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that. Um, so before we wrap up the night, how can someone, if so, I may have not asked all the questions that someone may want to answers to different questions, and or they may want to volunteer, they may want to just sit and have a conversation with you. How can somebody get in touch with you?
I welcome anyone to check out my website. It's Vote Cowan, VOTECOWAN.com. And that provides an opportunity to reach out to me and provides an opportunity to sign up for volunteering, to sign up to receive a yard sign. We're happy to deliver yard signs or window signs. So if you're in an apartment or just want a window sign, we're happy to deliver window signs as well. And it's a great way to stay connected and up to date with the campaign and to reach out with any specific questions.
Awesome. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to come out of the full screen just so I can see if someone put in a question into the chat. Um, I don't see any, so that must mean that we have been answering everything. But before we end for tonight, I'm sorry. Before we end for tonight, excuse me, I was eating popcorn prior, and
Now it's lunch.
exactly.
Kernels.
I am sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but we're going to end for tonight. But please, Judge Cowan, is there anything that you would like to say before we say goodnight?
Thank you, Terri, so much for this opportunity to speak with you. I always, always, always enjoy our time together and just really appreciate it. And I hope that this has been valuable and helpful for the community at large. And have a great weekend.
Yes, yes. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining Talk Time with Terri. Judge Cowan, hang on before when we leave, when we end for tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining Talk Time with Terri. Talk to you soon.